Chapter 3 goes into a lot more detail about what analysis is and what you do when you analyze something. So if you don't understand what analysis is by the end of this chapter, go back, look over the information some more, and keep working with it, because this is the heart of it. And if you don't understand this, you need to keep working with it. It's probably all becoming one big blob of yuck in your brains, but that's okay. Just keep working with it, and hopefully it will start to separate out and make sense. And if you have some huge, life-changing question, let me know, and I'll try to help you out with whatever you need. So very basically, analysis is just breaking apart the pieces of a text and looking for patterns and meaning within it. And when I say text, it can mean a whole lot of things. It's not just written works, even though it is. So it could be an article, it could be a novel, a poem, anything like that. Or it could be a painting or an advertisement, a visual text. Okay, so it can be both things. Don't just think that it's just writing that I'm referring to. And in one of the discussion boards coming up, you'll actually be working with a visual text as opposed to a written one. Okay, so again, breaking apart the pieces, looking at the different things, and then putting them back together to find what they mean. And so your job as the analyzer is to investigate in order to understand something you didn't know previously. So that's why the textbook tells you that it's okay to be okay with confusion and to not always have an answer. That's perfectly fine. When I wrote my thesis as a graduate student, it took me 2 years to write that thing. I got lucky and had my topic by the first quarter of my 2-year program. And you would not believe how things shifted from that fall quarter to the last spring quarter 2 years later. When I started my analysis, all I was doing was analyzing and looking and looking and looking. I mean, hours and hours, days, weeks, months, years. And it did not come with an answer until probably a month before I was done. So that's obviously a bit bigger. I'm not expecting you to go through, that horrifying experience, even though I did love grad school, and that was this information to a T. The same thing can happen. You may not have an answer after you're done analyzing something, and that's okay. You don't always have to have an answer. Just be okay with that. And then again, remember that analysis is objective. Leave yourself out of it. It's not a time for evaluation, judgment, anything like that. You are simply investigating. That's it. So the chapter lists 5 analytical moves, and I think that's kind of a confusing way to put it. It's pretty much just the 5 things that an analysis does. Okay, they're kind of guidelines to help you strengthen your skills and to keep you from judging and evaluating while you are analyzing. But just like with the heuristics, the more you use them and the more you look at these analytical moves, the more natural they'll become and the more automatic they'll become. So if you can just remember what those 5 moves are, you will be fine. It's a great starting spot. Okay, so I want you to hopefully have your book out somewhere. Take a second, get your book out. I'm delaying, and turn it to page 72. On page 72, there is a diagram of the communication triangle at the bottom. I just want you to take a look at that so that you can understand what types of writing are focused on what. So if you look at the top of the triangle, hopefully you're there by now, you see that it's writer-centered. Okay, that's expressive writing. We're not going to do that in this course pretty much at all. You might consider your reflective essay at the end to be semi-expressive, but it's really not. You're analyzing yourself. So it's still an analysis. What you're analyzing is just you. So kind of writer-centered. Otherwise, we're not doing any writer-centered writing at all in this course. And then if you look at the bottom right, you see that there is reader-centered communication. Okay, that's argument. That's when you're trying to convince your audience of something, you're trying to win them over. Okay, you're not going to be doing that either. You will be focused on the left-hand side, the subject-centered, and that's where summary is, and that's where analysis is. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Maybe it'll clear something up. I don't know, but I appreciate that the textbook brought that in. So pretty much summary is just a description of a text, whereas analysis goes beneath that surface to find what's going on behind it, to find the rhetoric that the author is using in order to be understood. Okay, going back to that rhetoric word again. And again, basically, summary is what the author says. Analysis is how the author says it. That's probably the phrase that I say the most when I see students summarizing instead of analyzing. It's summary is just what they're saying. Analysis is how they're saying it. It's the rhetoric. Both are objective, so you got to keep yourself out of both of them. There's no evaluation, judgment, or criticism. None of that. Hopefully I'm beating that to death and that you'll understand that part of it. You're just analyzing. Okay, so that's the difference between analysis and summary. With analysis and argument, analysis again seeks to just understand something. That's all that it wants to do. It's not arguing something, whereas argument is obviously arguing, and it's trying to convince the reader of something and to win that argument. Okay, and again, even the most impressive analysis doesn't have to have a right answer. It can be left in a state of confusion. Like I said, going back to my thesis, I had to be okay with just leaving it. And I mean, I presented on my thesis twice before I got that answer. So, I mean, I did it publicly. I publicly said, I have no idea what this means, but there's something there. And then by the end, I absolutely loved the answer that I came up with. So it really is worth the work, I promise. But be okay if that right answer doesn't come forward. And it's not even really a right answer. It's just an interpretation, a conclusion to your interpretation. Okay? Analysis allows for perspective and opposing views. It doesn't, just hammer one side like argument can, which is more rigid. Analysis is just kind of more mellow, more laid back, saying, this is what I see. If that's what you see, that's cool too. What does it all mean? Okay, kind of mellow. We're mellow in analysis. But to add to the confusion, of course, we can't make things easy. Analysis is still inherently an argument, because once you analyze something and then you make an interpretation about it, you have to argue for it. But it's not going to be the cutthroat, I'm right type of arguing. You just have to present your evidence and your support and examples and all of that in order to show your reader that your analysis is credible and that your interpretation is well-founded. Because really, there are some interpretations that are just dead wrong. So just because you see something happening in a text doesn't make it right. You have to prove that it's right. But it's the analysis type of argument, not a cutthroat, I'm going to kill you if you don't agree with me type argument. Okay? So what that means is that analysis is objective and subjective at the same time. Really? Did your brain explode? I hope not. Hopefully you kind of saw that coming. I don't know. But it's both at the same time. You have to keep yourself out of it. You have to stay objective when you analyze. But when you present your analysis and your interpretation, you are technically arguing. Let me know. Let me know if you need a brain transplant after that one. I wanted to make a quick note on ethos. Ethos is the perceived credibility of the writer. Doesn't mean that's what the writer actually is, but it's the perceived credibility, which is all that your reader has. Your reader doesn't, know you, knows nothing about you. At least you need to assume they don't. So all that they understand about you is how you write. So you need to ask yourself, how do you want your readers to perceive you? Because I promise, just because I don't make nasty comments on your papers does not mean I think them. Well, I don't really think them either, but I will gently try to tell you that your reader will think negatively about you at certain points in your paper, but I'll do it nicely. Think about people who talk and somebody's talking at you. You're making judgments in your head, whether they're coming out of your mouth or not. So how do you want to be perceived? With writing, you can take your time and revise and edit and all of that. So be really careful about how your reader's going to perceive you. The text teaches you to strive to be non-adversarial, which means non-combative, not enemies, but, friends. That you want to be collaborative, which means you want to work together. to find something, find an answer to a question. You want to be qualified. You need to be intelligent and smart, and be humble too. Okay, you don't want to beat people down and say I'm right and you're not. And this goes into all of college writing. Okay, and really college writing is about ethos. So if you can, work on those 4 elements that I just mentioned, you'll be pretty good. Okay, and I know that really when I say that you have readers, no, you really don't have readers. It's just me, but you need to write as if you did. Someday you might, you never know. And going back to the talking issue, I'm hoping that your thinking doesn't just change in terms of your writing. I want it to change who you are and how you function in the world around you. So how do you want to be perceived when you talk to someone? Do you want to be perceived as the moron who always has an opinion, but that opinion is always ridiculous? Or do you want to be the person that people respect and are willing to listen to, and things like that? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But do be aware of that when you write. Do you want to be an idiot or do you want to be intelligent? Pretty much it is up to you. And then lastly, I wanted you to review the guidelines for analysis at the end of chapter 3, because it's just a summary of what the chapter was about. And pretty much if you have those main points nailed down, you're good. If you don't, go back, read, do maybe some research on the internet. I don't know, ask me questions, do whatever you need to do so that you can very clearly and confidently know what analysis is and what it does.